In this video, I'm going to discuss one of the two most important conversation techniques that you can teach your ESL students. After your students learn these techniques, they will become more engaged and even more likable conversationalists. By using these techniques, even the more passive students become active in conversation. These two techniques serve as the foundation of any good conversation. Here is what I'll present in this video. First, I'll show you how we can briefly explain this first technique to students. Next, I'll explain a set of student-centered exercises, which you can use to teach this first technique. These exercises have been effectively used with literally thousands of students around the world. In the notes below, you can find a link where you can download the exercises for free to use with your students. Now, I'll show you how we can introduce this first technique to ESL students. You'll notice that this introduction, in which I, as the teacher, am the focus, takes only about 2 minutes. From the introduction, we just want students to become aware of the technique and how important it is. Here is what I say to the students. If I say to you, "My dog died last night," and you just look at me and don't say anything, I won't know if you heard me, or if you understood me, or I might think you aren't interested. However, if I say, "My dog died last night," and you say, "That's great," then I know that you heard me, but you probably didn't understand. But if I say, "My dog died last night," and you say, "Oh, that's too bad," then I know that you understood me and that you were interested. Expressions like "that's great" or "oh, that's too bad" are called rejoinders. We use rejoinders to show that we are listening, that we understand, and that we are interested in what someone is saying. These are some rejoinders that we can use after someone said something to us, depending on what they said. For example, if I say, "I'll probably stay home tonight and watch a DVD," and you want to let me know that you heard me, you could respond by saying, "I see," or "uh-huh," or "that's nice." If I say, "I think I figured out how to fix the problem you are having with your phone," and you want to let me know that you like what I said, you could respond by saying, "Oh, that's great," or "terrific," or "cool," or "wonderful." If we're at the airport, and I say, "Our flight is delayed again. We have to wait 3 hours," you could say, "Oh no," to let me know that you understood what I had said. Let's say that I told you that I just saw our boss on TV. You could say, "You're kidding," to let me know that you were pretty surprised and that you heard what I said. And if at any time you are confused by what someone said, you can always say, "I'm sorry, what did you say?" or "Could you repeat that?" So that is basically how I would introduce rejoinders. You can see that the teacher is the focus for only about 2 minutes. That's all the time we need to accomplish our purpose of helping students understand what they will be practicing and why they will be practicing these rejoinders. Now the fun part starts with some student-centered exercises. We want students to see how rejoinders work, so we have them work with some brief dialogues. Probably the least effective way to do this is to just give them some dialogues that include rejoinders and have them read the dialogues in pairs, or read them to the whole class. For most ESL students, they will do that mindlessly, not really focusing on the use of rejoinders. A much better way is to have them use some critical thinking skills. As you can see, to do this exercise, they need to actually think about what is being said in the dialogue. So A starts and asks, "How was the tennis match?" Then B answers, "I won." In order to fill in the blank with the correct word from the box, the students need to really have thought about what B said. So they fill in the blanks with the words from the box. For this first blank, they will fill in with the rejoinder, "That's great." Then A asks another question, "Who did you play?" They do this individually. When almost everyone has finished, they read the dialogues in pairs in order to check their answers. Doing it this way, rather than checking it whole class, is very non-threatening. It's rare for someone to make a mistake, but if they do, their partners can help them. They won't be embarrassed by making a mistake in front of the whole class. In the handout activity that I'll give you a link to, you'll see 3 more brief dialogues like this, which will give students more examples of how rejoinders work. When they finish, they know how rejoinders work. There's no reason to spend time doing these whole class or having the teacher read it to them. And now they are ready to practice these in pairs, doing some student-centered exercises. Exercise 2 is a two-way task. So in this exercise 2, in pairs, student A and student B, students work on a two-way task in which they have different information and complete the task by not looking at each other's page. This is what student A's paper looks like. Student B cannot see this. This involves 3 steps, going from controlled to more free form. Steps 1 and 2 are controlled, with items given to the students. Look at item 1. Student A reads, "My sister lost her cell phone again." And then B has to choose, can say, "That's great," or "That's too bad." This is what I mean by controlled. In step 2, the roles are reversed, with B reading a statement and A choosing. Then in step 3, it's more freeform, in which students apply what they learned in steps 1 and 2. They start by customizing some of the statements to their own personal lives. When they read these statements, they seem to enjoy hearing the type of reactions they'll get. Also, if their partner responds with a, quote, wrong rejoinder, they know that there probably was a communication breakdown. Notice again that this is all student-centered. You, as the teacher, will probably need to briefly be the focus when you show 1 or 2 items as models to help students see how these work. But after that, you just observe students as they work in pairs, ready to answer any questions if they have some. You can see on my channel a video with more details about the teacher's role during pair work. By the way, you'll probably see students smiling and laughing while they're doing these exercises. These are a lot of fun. After a colleague used these techniques, she told me with wonder in her eyes, "I saw magic happen in my class today. My students suddenly became very animated. Their voices rose and they were laughing." In fact, you can suggest that they extend the conversation more if they'd like to. For example, A starts and says, "I have 1 brother and 1 sister." And then B can think of a rejoinder. You might say, "That's great." And then B can extend it with another question. For example, B could say, are they older or younger than you? Or, what are their names? And then A can answer directly or can even use his or her imagination. Naturally, when students are doing pair activities, some pairs will finish sooner than others. Here's what you can do in these situations. You can give those early finishers 3 options. I usually write these on the board. I tell them that they can change papers. A then becomes B, and B becomes A, and then they do the exercises again. The items that they are reading to each other or that they're hearing from their partner are completely different. So it's a good way to do this again. I'd say most students actually choose that option. But then there are some who have some things that they'd like to talk about with their partner, for example, maybe what they're planning to do that weekend. And so that's where they get second option, where they can talk about anything they want in English. Or, some students would just kind of like to sit quietly for a little bit, and I give them that option. Some students like to just kind of reflect on the exercise they did. So these options have always been effective and have taken pressure off the teacher to stop the practice early. Actually, it's usually the most serious students who take the most time doing these exercises, so it's a real shame to make them stop. After most pairs have finished, you can stop there. You don't have to do any of them whole class. They know what rejoinders are, why they are useful, and how to use them. This is the first of the 2 most important conversation techniques. On my next video, I'll tell you about the second most important technique called follow-up questions. To download this activity for free to use with your students, you can use the link in the notes below. I'll continue to be adding more videos to my channel about teaching ESL conversation, discussion, writing, and even grammar. See you next time.